Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are returning to the My Favorite WWF LJN tournament, and after about 4 months, guys, we're not just seeing light at the end of the tunnel. We are literally right at the end of the tunnel, and we are about a tongue's length away from completing this tournament after about 80 episodes and shoot, with the additional episode thrown in, I think we're going to be at about 82 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, to complete this a complete tournament. So, like, wow, unbelievable! I've never had so many episodes to complete a tournament for. Remember, man, when you kind of look at my very first LJN tournament, when you throw in the very first episode, which was kind of more of an introduction episode, so it doesn't even count as an LJN tournament video. But heck, let's throw that one in there as well. If you throw that introduction episode in, 27 episodes to complete the first LJN tournament. And the second tournament, something was different about the second tournament because even though I had more figures the second tournament than I did the first, I feel like I had less episodes the second time. Like, I think I had 25 episodes the second time and like 26, 27 if you count the introduction. Maybe I was doing 4 matches the first time and 5 matches the second time. Maybe that's why I had less episodes or something like that. I don't know. But I mean, here I was only doing 4 matchups per episode, but still 320 figures. I said it before, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do it like this again. I already know in the future, if I am going to do another My Favorite LJN tournament in the future, I am going to eliminate past winners. They will not participate in future tournaments. So that's already going to be stricken from tournament participation. I'm also going to eliminate figures that I know have absolutely zero chance of winning. So figures like Roddy Piper and all Roddy Piper customs, Jimmy Snuka, I don't know, Iron Sheik figures, not the Colonel Mustafa. Colonel Mustafa is a completely different figure, of course, but I'm looking at the custom wall because I'm trying to think like what figures like really like Haku, King Haku figures. I'm thinking all of those. Macho Man, like I know Macho Man and all of the Macho Man customs I know have no chance of winning, but I know Macho Man LJNs in general have like a really good chance. Have a lot of appreciation, a lot of love between for the fans and for the viewers who watch these LJN tournaments. So I want to incorporate those figures for the people who watch these tournaments. And as someone who grew up watching Macho Man and idolizing Macho Man, I want to see Macho Man participate in this tournament, but it's just not a figure that I enjoy. At least the customs I love. The original LJN figure, it's just not a good one. Now the LJN custom with the upgraded arm, that one I'll keep because that's actually a good one, and that one actually should be right here at the end. So, but like I'm kind of going up there. Jesse Ventura, Brutus Beefcake, maybe, figures like that. I know I won't want to incorporate those type of figures because I know they have no chance whatsoever of winning this tournament. So, I mean, that's gonna probably eliminate like probably 50 figures because when it comes to like Brutus Beefcake, when it comes to like Roddy Piper, when it comes to I don't know, I'm thinking figures that have like absolute tonnage of customs. I mean, Bruce Beefcake and Roddy Piper alone, I probably have like probably 15 figures, 15 customs of those two figures alone. So that's going to eliminate a ton of customs. And I can really diminish the amount of figures I discuss or I can incorporate into this tournament. I'm not ready to say goodbye to this tournament. After 4 months, you would think I'm ready to move on to another storyline, a new segment, but when you spend so much time devoting to one particular topic, it's hard, man. I don't want to wait another year to do another tournament. I like these LJNs. I love doing the LJN tournaments. They just bring excitement. So, here in round 7, it is the semifinals, and we only got 5 figures to draw. I'm hoping that the names that I draw today is going to go pretty smoothly, so I don't really think that this is going to be some 30 or 40 minute video. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking here at the beginning. First matchup is going to be a one-on-one. The last matchup is going to be a one-on-one-on-one. But I'm going to make a 3-man finals, which means the last matchup, the 3-man matchup, I'm going to choose 2 figures to move forward. So I'm hoping that's going to make things a little bit easier. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit easier. So, let's see, get these really mixed in well and see what the first matchup is. And that's going to leave the Dragon Steamboat squaring off against Hulk Hogan Series 1. And that leaves Butch Reed, Big Boss Man, and Colonel Mustafa vying for the last 2 spots. So, that is 5 figures. I want to see all of them in the finals. Do I have a favorite? I kind of said that if Hulk Hogan made it past the last round, he was a favorite. I kind of felt like I was really going to be a hard time to say that he wasn't going to win this. But that Dragon Steamboat figure, it's a perfect figure, man. I don't know if I can honestly choose any figure to go past that one. In the 3-man tournament, I mean, at least I get to move 2 figures forward. The last video was one of the most toughest decisions I ever had to make. And the fact that I pushed Colonel Mustafa past Bruiser Brody, a 2-time champion, I would like to say that Colonel Mustafa is a bona fide answer to move on to the final round, but in all honesty, Butch Reed is, in my eyes, one of the most perfect figures I've ever seen. And Big Boss Man is probably the greatest LJN figure, period. Whether you're looking at original or custom, and the fact that he is an original figure, I think right now that has to be my top pick. So, before I even begin, do I have a favorite? I have figures I'd like to see win, but doesn't mean that they will. So let me go ahead, pull these figures off the shelves, and let's start talking about them and see what we can come up with. All right, first matchup is going to feature Hulk Hogan versus Dragon Steamboat. And I don't know, man. I just think it's the Hogan figure. Like, you when you have a certain, when you hold figures up, there are just certain figures that when you hold up to the camera, you get that feeling, that inkling that you just want to have a wrestling a wrestling match with these guys. And the more and more you hold these figures up, you become more and more passionate. You just want to sit down and have a wrestling match. But I think it's more the particular figure that you're holding up. Yeah, it's definitely Hogan. It's not even so much the fact that I love all these figures, and even though the figures that I love, like Big Boss Man, for example, has everything I'm looking for in an action figure, right? But do I have that passion to sit down and start wrestling with the figures when I hold up Big Boss Man? Not really. But when I hold up Hulk Hogan and he's scoring off like against King Kong Bundy, for example, like I'm dying to have a match when Hogan has his match against Bundy, or when it's Hogan and he's now scoring off Dragon. Like I am freaking dying to sit there and wrestle Ricky Steamboat against Hogan right now. Like I would think that this would right here would be a killer matchup. So it is really the passion that you have with certain figures. And this is what I'm talking about. I've never been able to give Hulk Hogan, LJN original, the sort of love or appreciation in previous tournaments. Never a question about whether or not this figure meant anything to me, whether I enjoyed this figure. After my first LJN tournament, I sat down, I'm like, okay, bam. How did I feel about this figure? Or how would I rate my favorite top LJN figures? Well, Hulk Hogan original was a one and gone first time elimination. He was removed from competition from his custom. But when I did my top 10 countdown, he was my number 2 selection. My number 2 favorite LJN figure. But I compare him to like Kamala, a semifinalist, one of the last 4 standing. But Kamala I put down at number 4. Like, what the heck? What gives? A couple years later, or the next year. Actually, I keep saying next year. Later on that year, I redid the tournament and I did it better. And Kamala was a finalist. I still kept Kamala at number 4. Still, Hogan, one and done. First round elimination. I still keep Kamala at number 4. I still kept Hogan as my number 2 favorite LJN. There is always something going to be special about this particular figure. When I was doing, if in this tournament, and I know better, I know in this tournament, if I was still doing the same thing, if I was doing, original figure scoring off against custom figure, any figure with like pose was squaring off against their original figure, like original Series 1 Hogan squaring off against custom Hogan's with Series 1 Hogan's customs, or Series 5 Hogan original squaring off against Series 5 repaints, customs, etc. I know that one of the customs we're going to win again. I know 100% it was going to happen. But the simple fact that I chose not to do that this time and let every figure have the opportunity to advance, I'm so grateful that I made that choice to make things a little bit different this time around. Because you got to see all of these unique matchups. You got to see so many figures advance so much further than you probably would have ever had the opportunity to see in the past. That's why you see Series 1 Andre the Giant in round 5. You probably would not have seen that figure go more than round 2 in previous rounds. So, round 7. In previous tournaments, round 7 was the finals. But 320 figures. Last 5 standing. This is exactly where a Series 1 Hulk Hogan belongs. Among one of the last 5 as one of the greatest LJN figures ever. And the fact that I am taking my sweet time making as many arguments as I possibly can to try to save this figure for one more round, knowing that he's going up against possibly one of the most perfect, aesthetically pleasing figures ever, just shows you how much of appreciation and how well and how loved that figure is. "50% of the people back home watching this episode are like, dude, quit beating around the bush. You're going to choose Hogan. Everyone knows you're going to choose Hogan. There's no other choice. You've got to choose Hogan." The other 50% are like, nah, you've got to make the right choice. The right choice is this particular Dragon Steamboat figure. Not necessarily because of play pose or anything like that, but the overall aesthetics of the figure. When I say that, when I look at this room and I look at the figures on shelf, I've always described this room as my work of art, right? I don't have paintings on my wall. I don't put up posters or anything like that. But when I decided to start collecting and I look at these, I'm like, they're not toys to me. They really are artwork. Especially today with the modern creation of these, there's a reason that people say not for kids or 18 plus, because they're not intended for kids, right? They are intended for display. And as a resin figure, it is intended for display purposes and is intended to be admired as a work of art, and it is incredible. This is a pure statue. Now, is it the work of David? Probably not, but it is an awesome piece. This is one of those figures that I've talked about constantly that led me to absolutely having to do this tournament again. My inspiration for doing this tournament. Because I felt like this was the figure that was going to change everything. That was going to win this tournament and unseat Bruiser Brody as champion. But it's Hulk Hogan. Ricky Steamboat does not really mean anything to me. But Hulk Hogan from childhood, that's fondness, that's memories, that's history. Hulk Hogan does not have what I look for as far as aesthetics. What I've said about Greg Valentine and Andre the Giant, at the end of the day, hurts this figure the same way it hurts those figures. It's just not enough color and detail to put this figure over the top. It is a 100% perfect figure, don't get me wrong. This is how I remember Hulkster. But come on. This dragon, how can I pass on this? Ricky Steamboat is going to defeat Hulk Hogan. Moving on to the finals. And I don't know if Ricky Steamboat wins this tournament. If he does, at the very least, being in the final 3, I think is where he should have belonged all the time. I honestly thought that Bruiser Brody was going to be in the final three. That was, to me, was a no-brainer. So I thought Ricky Steamboat was probably going to be a finalist. I thought Ricky Steamboat, I thought Bruiser Brody would have been a finalist. And who the third member would have been, I don't know. Boss Man, possibly. Maybe Stud or Kamala. I don't know. Maybe Kamala was probably one. If not Boss Man, maybe Kamala. I was thinking maybe an original figure would have probably filled the third slot. But this has to be a choice. This has to be the most logical answer. Now, this last matchup pits three absolutely amazing figures. Big Boss Man is arguably, in my estimation nowadays, probably the greatest LJN figure. Now, I know a couple years ago when I did my countdown following up my very first LJN tournament, and I started counting off my favorite LJN figures, like I put Big Boss Man at number 6, and that was ludicrous because I put Big Boss Man at number 6 a slot below Greg Valentine. Greg Valentine is not a better figure than Big Boss Man. Now, because of the usage and enjoyment that I got from the Greg Valentine figure, I kept him in the top 5. But Boss Man, I think if I go back and redo the top 10, I'm changing things. And I think Boss Man drops from number 6 to number 1. I think he is the best LJN figure. And I've said it. Take away all of my mint on card LJN figures. Keep Boss Man MOC. That is the one thing I have to have always. That is the centerpiece of the collection. That is my most prized piece. Love this figure. Absolutely fantastic. From Mommy V's off of eBay, one figure that I picked up that I was not expecting to have as part of this tournament, it was just there on auction. And I don't even think I had any competition. I might have had one other bidder. I don't remember. But I say it all the time, man. I kind of feel like having a starting bid outside of 99 cents is a detriment to sellers. And that's insane. Like, I think about, I don't know, what's a good example? Like maybe a year or two ago, I was buying like the AWA Remco figures for Legion of Doom. I think someone was selling them for like $225 starting bid price. Now, those figures back then were selling for like $400. And someone had a starting bid of like $225, and I bid on them, and I was like the only bidder. And I was the only bidder for several days. If someone started the auction at 99 cents, that would have sold for $350, $400 easy. But because someone started the auction at $200, $225, whatever it was, that's the only reason I got them for that price. This figure, I think when they started the auction, I think they started the auction at like $50 or $60. I feel the same way. If they started the auction at 99 cents, this thing probably would have sold for over $100. This, in my opinion, is one of the most perfect figures you could have ever come across. But I understand why people start auctions at something other than $1, because it's the same reason why I start auctions at something other than 99 cents. Because you just don't know what the auction is going to go for, and you don't want to risk it. I could start an auction at 99 cents, hope that something sells for $10, and it sells for $3, and you just lost big time. So, or you want to sell something for $30 and it sells for $11.50. It's like, Why risk it? You're comfortable getting $60 for it. Start the auction at $60. Got it. But Butch Reed, this is such an incredible piece. I've talked about it many times already. Losing the Butch Reed Galoob 2-Up from Ram Treasures so early. I think it was like a first time elimination with the WCW Galoob 2-Up. And that hurt. Because that's one of the best figures from the WCW Galoob line. And Sid Vicious, Barry Windham, and the Butch Reed figures, they deserve to go as far in a tournament like this as possible. But at the end of the day, I gotta look at it like this. They are technically Galoob figures, right? In an LJN tournament. Yes, they're upscale to LJN size, but they're still technically Galoob. So, if Sid Vicious doesn't win this tournament, it's... You kind of live with it. You'd like to see him win for obvious reasons. But I saw this figure, I'm like, before I had this figure in hand, I had high hopes for this piece. Just like Big Boss Man, this is just an eye-popping piece. And his pose, it's pretty evenly balanced with that of Big Boss Man. So I think on a 1-to-1 basis, they are, pretty even keel figures. And I've also said that with Butch Reed, it's kind of like a nice balance between him and, let's say, someone like an SD Jones, right? And I keep calling him SD Jones from time to time, so it's got that nice little comparison. So, but you got a nice real Butch Reed figure. And with the nice little kind of built-ons, the color scheme that's eye-popping, fantastic pose, this is another perfect figure. When I look at the lineup of figures that could win this tournament year after year, there's probably, looking back at the last 10 figures that we've seen in this tournament, if I decide to kind of do like a retirement and every figure that's won a tournament gets retired, any one of these figures could win in future tournaments. And that would be so much fun to see every one of these guys win. But if I only do one tournament a year, having to wait, let's say, 10 years to see each one of these guys win a different tournament, that kind of would blow. I mean, I guess I could do 2 or 3 tournaments a year, but nah, I'm not doing all that. That's too much work. But Butch Reed is so much fun. And Colonel Mustafa. My God. It's funny, I can remember Colonel Mustafa, but I can't remember Kama Mustafa. I keep calling Kama Mustafa. I keep calling him Kama Sutra. I can't remember the name Mustafa for Kama. It's embarrassing. I keep doing it. But Colonel Mustafa, the man that broke the mold, the man that broke the LJN tournament, the man that broke history with this tournament. I honestly thought that Bruiser Brody, at the beginning of this tournament, Bruiser Brody was going to repeat as champion. Throughout this tournament, I thought Bruiser Brody was going to win. To the very end, Bruiser Brody. When I say that I think any one of these figures can win, 100%, I mean it every time. Whenever I've had past tournaments and I said this figure could win, 100% mean it. But because Bruiser Brody is a previous winner, Yes, he's obviously, like I said, he's obviously that guy that I put on the pedestal that I think is going to be the obvious choice to win because he's already won. He's already been the unanimous champion. So why would I not put all my money on the guy that's already won the tournaments in the past? But this figure, when I say Ricky Steamboat has been that figure that when you got in and you looked at it and you're like, my God, this piece is beyond amazing, that an LJN tournament is an absolute necessity. That this figure has the credentials to win a tournament and unseat Bruiser Brody. My God, Colonel Mustafa was that figure as well. They were the two pieces I got, and I'm like, we got to do this. No questions asked. This tournament has to happen. 6th round. Last 10 figures. Quarterfinals. Colonel Mustafa has the biggest challenge in LJN history going up against Bruiser Brody. And yeah, there's 10,000 other figures I've gone against Bruiser Brody in these tournaments. But what he did was defeat the 2-time champion. But now he's got the unalienable... what he's got to do is actually defeat 2 more front runners of this tournament. Does he succumb and lose out to these front runners, or does he meet the challenge and actually move on to the next round? So every time I film these videos, I always got a stuffy nose. It drives me nuts. Sorry. I should get like a little tissue or I don't like tissues. Get a napkin or a rag or something. My nose stays stuffy throughout the year. I had nasal surgery back in August, but you know what? They were supposed to like fix my septum, whatever, but that crap never works. My nose has like that, it like sinks down, right? They're supposed to like raise it up, and it sank back down within a month. So that crap didn't hold. But here are your 3 figures once again. So Colonel Mustafa has beat the champion. Huge bonus. When it came to the past champion, Big Boss Man lost to Bruiser Brody. When it comes to these 3 figures, that is a huge red flag. I don't want to say red flag, but could he have possibly defeated Bruiser Brody if the tides were turned and it was him going against Bruiser Brody in the last round? Maybe. I've said it a few times throughout this tournament. I didn't feel as highly about Bruiser Brody this time around that I've been feeling about him in previous tournaments. So it is possible Big Boss Man could have potentially defeated him had they squared off at some point during this tournament. But I feel like the same way about Butch Reed. I kind of feel like he too could have defeated him potentially. But we will never know, given the fact that neither one of these guys had the opportunity to face him. I only have to get rid of one guy. It's not like I have to eliminate 2. I only have to eliminate 1. But the choice is so hard. The logical answer, because I am play pose obsessed, is Colonel Mustafa. But I've said it. Play pose be damned. this, when I look over this figure, it's like the King Kong Bundy, upgraded King Kong Bundy figure. There is just so much happiness and excitement when I hold this figure. There is just so much intricate detail that went into creating this. With all the epoxy that was applied to this, and all of the creases and ruffles that went into the design of the pants, and even keeping the elf shoes, I can't see myself putting down this particular figure. It would be insane to say the guy that defeated Bruiser Brody loses in the semifinals. No. Colonel Mustafa is going to the finals. Like I said, this is arguably one of the most perfect or beyond perfect figures that you could ever imagine. And there was just no way humanly possible I could ever say that Colonel Mustafa is going home. No way, shape, or form. Play pose be damned. No, it isn't happening. Colonel Mustafa is definitely one of my selections to move on. So, that leaves Big Boss Man and Butch Reed. I'm trying to think. Have I ever had all customs in a final match before? In the first tournament, it was Big John Studd and Bruiser Brody. In the second one, in the second tournament, we had three men. We had three men in the finals, and I believe it was Kamala and Big Boss Man along with Bruiser Brody. So, no, we've always had at least one original. So, with both Colonel Mustafa and the Dragon Steamboat in the finals, that's already 2 customs. We could make it 3 customs in the finals. Or we could keep it with at least one original. We could change the pattern here. Here's the thing. I can't keep calling this the greatest LJN or one of the greatest LJN figures ever if I decide to put him down in this matchup. I just don't know anything about the Butch Reed character. I didn't grow up watching Butch Reed. I didn't watch him in WCW. And really outside that Survivor Series match, I really think that's like the first time I'd ever seen him wrestle. That was the, 87, I want to say. Where it was like Butch Reed. And I can never get the names right. So I'm trying to think. I think it was Butch Reed, Rick Rude, I think it was King Kong Bundy. I think it was One Man Gang and Andre the Giant, 5. And I think they went up against Ken Patera, 1. Bam Bam Bigelow. I think Paul Orndorff was 3, if I'm not mistaken. I think Don Morocco maybe 4. And Hogan 5. I think that was right. I could be wrong, but I think that was the right lineup. And yeah, like that was like the first time I ever seen him wrestle. The only time that I can recall. And that was through home video later on. Like, I've never seen him live or anything like that, so. Boss Man. So much history with Big Boss Man growing up. Love Big Boss Man to death. he will always be one of my greatest influences as a wrestler. We're already at 40 minutes. I thought this was going to be like a 30-minute video, guys. I'm going to end the video soon. I'm going to make a choice. Per usual, with this tournament, I am going to make a shocking choice. I'm going to push 3 Customs into the final match. In his first tournament, the last figure I acquired, the last entrant into this tournament, Butch Reed, who entered this tournament just in the nick of time, is entering the finals. 320 figures entered this tournament, and he will be one of the last 3 standing. Look, guys, I gotta be honest. I think this is probably the most impressive finals I've ever seen. So, obviously at 40 minutes, there is no way possible I'm making this one single video. And that was never the plan. I was always going to make the finals a separate video. Even if this was like a 20-minute video, that was still going to be a separate video. But as always, guys, I know I'm going to tick off a lot of people who would want to see Hogan, or at the very least Bossman, make it to the finals. At least one original, but I just couldn't do it. Not this time. But this was really tough. But this was a lot of fun, guys, and I'm hoping that you guys really enjoyed this tournament, and I'm hoping that you guys will tune in for the finals, and it's going to be a 40-minute video. I have no idea who I'm going to choose. I'm looking at them. I have no idea. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and until tomorrow's video, talk to you in the comments. See you in the next video. Take care, everybody.